Spring arrived quietly. At the Carter Foundation, the old farmhouse had become something Grandpa Richard had always dreamed of. Children came to read stories. Teachers shared lessons of kindness. Neighbors left handwritten memories. Every week, the shelves of the Book of Quiet Kindness grew a little fuller. One peaceful morning, Noah unlocked Grandpa Richard's study. Sunlight filtered through the old lace curtains. Dust floated gently in the warm light. Everything still carried his grandfather's presence. The pocket watch rested silently inside its glass case. The framed map hung proudly above the fireplace. The empty wooden box remained untouched. Some memories needed no explanation. Noah smiled softly. It finally feels like home. Sarah entered, carrying a stack of journals. We're running out of shelf space. She laughed. I don't think Grandpa expected quite this many stories. Noah looked around. Then maybe it's time to organize everything. Together, they began cleaning. The old study. Books were dusted. Letters were sorted. Photographs placed carefully into archival boxes. Near the window stood Grandpa Richard's heavy oak desk. It was worn smooth by decades of quiet work. Noah opened each drawer. Most contained pens, notebooks, old family photographs. Nothing unusual until he reached the lowest drawer. It wouldn't open. Lily knelt beside him. Maybe it's stuck. Ethan examined the wooden frame. He gently tapped along one side. A hollow sound echoed back. There must be a hidden compartment. They searched carefully for several minutes. Nothing happened. Then Lily noticed a tiny carved bird near the underside of the drawer. It looked like simple decoration. She pressed it gently. A quiet click broke the silence. Inside the desk, a narrow compartment slowly slid open. Noah held his breath. Inside, there was no treasure, no jewelry, no money, no mysterious key. Only a single cream-colored envelope, perfectly preserved, as though someone had placed it there. Only yesterday, across the front, Grandpa Richard's handwriting appeared as clear as ever. It read, "To whoever needs this most." No name, no address, no stamp, no date. Sarah whispered. He never mailed it. Noah carefully lifted the envelope. It felt surprisingly light, almost empty, yet somehow it carried the weight of every journey they had taken together. Lily looked puzzled. How can someone write a letter without knowing who will read it? Noah smiled thoughtfully. Maybe Grandpa wasn't writing to one person. He was writing to anyone who had almost lost hope. No one suggested opening it. Not yet. They had learned from Grandpa Richard that patience often revealed what curiosity could not. Noah placed the envelope inside Grandpa's leather satchel. I don't think we found this today by accident. I think we'll know when it's time. Outside, a gentle breeze moved through the branches of the old oak tree. One small leaf drifted onto the study window, almost as if Grandpa Richard was quietly reminding them. Some letters find their readers only when their hearts are finally ready. The mysterious envelope remained unopened. For 3 days, it rested quietly inside Grandpa Richard's leather satchel. Every morning, Noah looked at it. Every evening, he placed it back. Something inside him kept saying, not yet. Life at the Carter Foundation continued as usual. Families visited to read stories. Children planted trees near the old oak. Volunteers sorted new letters from people across the country. Every story added another page to the Book of Quiet Kindness. Late one rainy afternoon, just before closing, a young man walked slowly through the front gate. His clothes were soaked. His backpack hung from one shoulder. His face looked exhausted, not from the rain, from life. He hesitated. At the doorway. "I'm sorry. I know. You're closing. I just needed somewhere quiet." Noah smiled warmly. "You're welcome here, as long as you need." The young man stepped inside. He didn't ask for food. He didn't ask for money. He simply looked around the room, at the photographs, the old pocket watch, the framed map, the shelves, filled with stories. After several minutes, he quietly asked, "What is this place?" Lily answered gently, "It's a home for stories." That almost disappeared. The young man managed a small smile. "I wish Miss Story was worth saving." Noah looked at him. "Every story is worth saving, especially the ones people want to give up on." The young man looked down. "My name is Daniel." For a long moment, no one spoke. Rain tapped softly against the windows. The old farmhouse felt warmer than ever before. Finally, Daniel whispered, "I lost my job 3 months ago. My apartment last month. My fiancée left 2 weeks ago." He laughed quietly. Not because anything was funny, because sometimes pain becomes too heavy for tears. "I've saw more than 70 job applications. No replies. I stopped calling my parents. I stopped answering friends. I didn't want anyone to see me like this." Sarah quietly placed a warm cup of tea in front of him. She said nothing. Grandpa Richard had taught them that kindness doesn't always begin with words. Sometimes it begins with making someone feel safe. Daniel looked around the room. "You know, this is strange." "What is?" Noah asked. "This is the first place in weeks where nobody asked me what went wrong. They only asked if I wanted to sit down." Noah smiled. "Sometimes that's the better question." As Daniel wrapped both hands around the warm cup, Noah suddenly remembered the unopened envelope. His eyes moved toward Grandpa Richard's satchel. For the first time since finding it, the feeling was different. The quiet voice inside his heart no longer whispered, "Not yet." It simply said, "Now." Noah slowly reached into the satchel. He held the unopened letter for a long moment, then looked into Daniel's tired eyes. "I think my grandfather has been waiting for you." Daniel looked confused. "What do you mean?" Noah gently placed the sealed envelope on the table across the front. Daniel slowly read the handwritten words, "To whoever needs this most." He looked up, his voice barely audible. "You really think this could be for me?" Noah smiled softly. "I don't know, but somehow, I think my grandfather does." Daniel's trembling hand reached toward the envelope, not knowing that the next few pages would quietly change the course of his entire life. Daniel started at the cream-colored envelope. His hands trembled slightly. The words written across the front seemed impossible. "To whoever needs this most." He looked at Noah. "I don't understand. Your grandfather didn't know me." Noah smiled gently. "No, but he believed one day someone would need these words." Silence filled the old study. Outside, rain continued falling, softly, steadily, almost as though the world itself had slowed down to listen. Daniel carefully slid one finger beneath the seal. The envelope opened without resistance, as if it had been waiting for this exact moment. Inside, there was only one folded sheet. No photographs, no money, no instructions. Just Grandpa Richard's handwriting. Strong, steady, filled with kindness. Daniel began reading. "Dear friend, if this letter has found you, then perhaps life has convinced you that you have failed. I hope you'll let me offer another possibility. Maybe you are not failing. Maybe you are simply standing in the middle of a chapter whose ending you cannot see yet. The strongest oak tree doesn't become strong during sunny days. It grows because it survives the storms. Please don't measure your entire life by one difficult season. Vinta has fooled many people into believing spring would never return. It always does. Daniel stopped reading. His breathing had become uneven. He quietly closed his eyes. Lily noticed a single tear rolling down his cheek. No one interrupted him. After a long moment, he continued, "If today you feel invisible, remember this. The people who changed my life never stood on a stage. They were teachers, gardeners, neighbors, mechanics, parents, friends, ordinary people who simply chose not to give up. You may believe no one needs you, but somewhere there is a person whose future will become brighter simply because you refused to quit today. Stay, not because today is easy. Stay, because tomorrow may introduce you to someone who needs the person you are becoming." With hope, Richard Carter. The room remained silent. Even the rain seemed quieter. Daniel folded the letter slowly, holding it against his chest. "I've spent so many weeks thinking Miss Story was already over." He looked at Noah. "But this letter, it feels like someone reached across time just to tell me to keep going." Noah smiled. "My grandfather always believed the right words arrive exactly when they're needed." Daniel laughed softly. For the first time since entering the Carter Foundation, it wasn't a laugh to hide pain. It was the sound of hope returning. Before leaving, Daniel asked quietly, "May I keep this letter?" Noah nodded. "It was never ours to keep. I think it finally found its owner." As Daniel stepped out into the rain, something unexpected happened. The clouds slowly began to part. A narrow beam of golden sunlight broke through the sky. Daniel stopped, looked up, and smiled. For the first time in months, he didn't feel like he was walking away from life. He felt like he was finally walking toward it. Daniel left the Carter Foundation, holding Grandpa Richard's letter inside his jacket. The rain had almost stopped. The clouds slowly drifted apart. For the first time in many months, he wasn't thinking about everything he had lost. He was thinking about tomorrow. That night, Daniel rented the cheapest motel room he could find. The room was small. The wallpaper was peeling. The heater barely worked. Yet somehow, it felt different. Hope doesn't need a beautiful place to begin. Before going to sleep, he unfolded the letter again. He read it one more time, then another. Every sentence seemed to speak directly to his heart. One line wouldn't leave his mind. "Stay, because tomorrow may introduce you to someone who needs the person you are becoming." Daniel whispered, "What if that someone is me?" For the first time, he smiled at his own reflection. The next morning, instead of sleeping late, Daniel woke before sunrise. He showered, pressed his only clean shirt, and opened his laptop. There were still dozens of unanswered job applications. Normally, he would have closed them. This time, he wrote 5 new ones. He updated his resume, corrected mistakes he had ignored, added volunteer work he had once believed didn't matter. At noon, his phone rang, an unknown number. Daniel hesitated, then answered. "Hello." A warm voice replied, "Mr. Daniel, this is Michael. From Riverside Community Center. We received your application. We'd like to meet you. Daniel closed his eyes. It wasn't a job offer, just an interview. But after months of silence, it felt like a miracle. The interview was simple. The center didn't have much money. They couldn't offer a high salary, but they served people who had lost jobs, just like Daniel. The director smiled. I noticed you volunteered at a shelter several years ago. Daniel nodded. I almost didn't include that. I thought it wasn't important. The director smiled warmly. It was the reason I called. Daniel remembered Grandpa Richard's words. Ordinary acts of kindness are never wasted. Although someone else received the position. The director stopped Daniel before he left. I don't have a full-time job, but we always need someone willing to help people. Write resume. Daniel accepted without hesitation. Every Tuesday and Thursday, he volunteered, helping strangers, prepare for interviews, practice conversations, believe in themselves again. One evening, a young father approached him. I got hired today. If you hadn't helped me, I would have given up. Daniel froze. Those words sounded familiar, almost identical to what he had felt reading Grandpa Richard's letter. As he walked home that evening, he removed the folded letter from his pocket. It was becoming worn from being opened again and again. Daniel smiled softly. This letter didn't just save me. It taught me how to stand beside someone else. Far away, back at the Carter Foundation, Noah looked toward Grandpa Richard's desk. For reasons he couldn't explain, he smiled, almost as if somewhere his grandfather already knew. The letter had finally reached exactly the right person. Weeks passed. Quietly, every Tuesday and Thursday, Daniel arrived at the Riverside Community Center. He never missed a day. Sometimes only 3 people came. Sometimes 30. It didn't matter. He welcomed every person with the same warm smile. The letter never left his pocket. Its edges had become worn. The paper, soft from being unfolded. Again and again, whenever someone told him, I don't think I'm good enough, he remembered Grandpa Richard's words. Then he passed hope forward. One afternoon, a middle-aged man walked slowly into the center. His shoulders were slumped, his eyes filled with defeat. My name is Victor. I've been out of work for almost a year. Daniel invited him to sit down. He didn't begin with forms or interviews. Instead, he simply asked, what happened? Victor sighed deeply. I used to manage a factory. When it closed, I lost everything. My confidence, my savings, my purpose. Daniel listened, without interrupting, without offering quick advice. Grandpa Richard had taught that sometimes the greatest kindness is giving someone enough silence to tell the truth. After nearly an hour, Victor smiled weakly. I haven't talked like this in months. Daniel reached into his jacket. He unfolded Grandpa Richard's letter. I'd like to share something. He didn't give Victor the letter. He simply read one paragraph aloud. Please don't measure your entire life by one difficult season. Winter has fooled many people into believing spring would never return. Victor closed his eyes. Those few words seemed to lift a weight he had carried for far too long. The following week, Daniel helped Victor rewrite his resume, practice interviews, reconnect with former coworkers. Most importantly, he reminded Victor that experience never loses its value. A month later, Victor returned. This time, his walk was different. His shoulders were straight, his eyes bright again. He held out a small envelope. I got hired. Daniel smiled broadly. Congratulations. Victor shook his head. That's not the biggest news. He opened the envelope. Inside was a business card. He placed it on the table. Across the top, it read, Hope Works Career Center. Daniel looked confused. Victor smiled. I've accepted my new job, but every Saturday, I want to help people the way you helped me. I've already found 5 volunteers. We're opening a free workshop for anyone who's lost hope, along with their job. Daniel stared at the card, then quietly laughed. It started with 1 letter. Victor smiled. No, it started with 1 man who believed the stranger was worth encouraging. That evening, Daniel returned to the Carter Foundation. Noah welcomed him with a warm handshake. Daniel placed the business card beside Grandpa Richard's photograph. I thought I was the one who needed saving. He smiled. But now, I've realized the greatest healing comes when we help someone else stand back up. Noah looked at Grandpa Richard's picture, then at Daniel. For a brief moment, it felt as though Grandpa Richard was smiling too. The letter had not reached its final reader. It had begun creating riders of hope, one life at a time. Autumn arrived. Quietly, golden leaves covered the path leading to the Carter Foundation. Every week, more visitors came. Some arrived to read stories. Others simply wanted a peaceful place to sit. Daniel became one of the Foundation's most faithful volunteers. Every Saturday morning, he unlocked the front door, made fresh coffee, straightened the reading chairs, then waited for whoever needed hope that day. One afternoon, a teenage girl walked slowly inside. She couldn't have been more than 16. She carried a worn backpack and held a folded report card tightly against her chest. My name is Emma, she whispered. I heard this place helps people. Daniel smiled warmly. We try. Emma lowered her eyes. I failed my college entrance exams. My parents think I've wasted my future. Daniel remembered how those words once sounded inside his own heart. Instead of giving advice, he opened the book of quiet kindness. He turned to an empty page, then placed a pen beside Emma. She looked confused. You want me to write? Daniel nodded. I want you to write the story you hope you'll tell 5 years from now. Emma hesitated. I don't know how it ends. Daniel smiled. Neither did I. Slowly, she began writing, not about failure, but about the person she still hoped to become. When she finished, she quietly smiled. For the first time since arriving, Noah watched from across the room, then turned toward Grandpa Richard's photograph. Softly, he whispered, the letter is still working. Inspired by Emma, Daniel had an idea. What if everyone who leaves here writes a letter to someone they've never met? Not advice, not instruction, only encouragement for a stranger who might need it. Someday, Noah loved the idea. Within days, a wooden mailbox was placed near the entrance. Above it, a simple sign read, Letters for Tomorrow. Visitors stopped before leaving. Some wrote only a few sentences. Others filled several pages. One elderly woman wrote, Dear friend, you are stronger than your worst day. A young father wrote, Your children need your presence more than your perfection. A retired nurse wrote, Please don't believe that asking for help means you failed. Week after week, the mailbox filled with hope. Soon, schools joined, churches participated, local businesses added letters. Children wrote colorful notes, decorated with drawings of sunshine, trees, and smiling hearts. By Christmas, more than 2,000 letters filled the Foundation's library. H1, waiting patiently for the right reader. One evening, Lily quietly asked, "Do you think Grandpa Richard planned this?" Noah smiled, looking toward the old desk. "I don't think. He wanted people to keep reading his letter forever. I think he hoped one letter would inspire thousands more." Just before closing, Noah noticed a small envelope resting quietly inside the mailbox. Unlike the others, there was no handwriting on the front, only one sentence, typed neatly across the center. "I think it's my turn to write one." Noah gently picked it up without opening it. He smiled because he knew Grandpa Richard's greatest legacy had never been the words he left behind. It was inspiring others to write words that could one day save someone else. Winter settled gently over the Carter Foundation. Snow covered the old oak tree, its branch bare but strong, just like hope, waiting quietly for spring. Inside the library, the wooden mailbox, labeled "Letters for Tomorrow," was overflowing. Hundreds, then thousands, of handwritten letters filled its shelves. H1, written by someone who had once needed hope and now wished to pass it on. Every Friday, Noah, Lily, Sarah, and Daniel read through the newest letters. Some were joyful, some heartbreaking. Every one was honest. One afternoon, Daniel opened a plain white envelope. There was no name, no return address, only a single sentence, written neatly across the front. "Please read this aloud." Daniel looked at Noah. "I think this one's different." They gathered around Grandpa Richard's old wooden disc. Daniel unfolded the letter. His voice became almost a whisper. "Dear stranger, you don't know me, and perhaps you never will, but 1 year ago, I almost ended my own life. I believed no one would notice if I disappeared. Then, someone handed me a letter written by a man who had already left this world. He told me not to measure my whole life by one painful season. Those words kept me alive. Today, I have a job, a home, friends, and every Saturday, I volunteer helping teenagers who feel exactly as I once did. If you are reading this, please believe me, you are closer to hope than you think. Please, stay. Someone you haven't met yet needs you. Thank you for saving a stranger who never met. Richard Carter." The room fell silent. No one needed to ask who had written it. Daniel quietly smiled. "It was me." Lily reached for his hand. "I knew." Daniel laughed softly. "I almost didn't send it. I thought Miss Story was too ordinary." Noah gently shook his head. Grandpa Richard spent his whole life teaching us that ordinary stories are the ones people need most. That evening, the Foundation hosted its weekly gathering. Neighbors, teachers, families, children filled the room. Instead of reading one of Grandpa Richard's stories, Daniel stepped forward, holding his own letter. His hands still trembled, but this time, not from fear, from gratitude. He read every word aloud. When he finished, the room remained completely still. Several people were wiping away tears. An elderly man slowly stood. I thought I was too old to begin again. A young mother whispered, "I needed to hear this tonight." A college student quietly asked, "May I write one too?" Within minutes, nearly everyone walked toward the wooden mailbox. Pens began moving across paper. Parents, teenagers, grandparents, children, all writing to someone they would probably never meet. Noah looked Around the room, the Carter Foundation was no longer just a place where stories were remembered. It had become a place where new stories were being born. As the evening ended, Daniel looked at Grandpa Richard's photograph. He smiled. You were right. One letter can become 1,000. Just before turning off the lights, Noah noticed another envelope resting quietly on Grandpa Richard's desk. It hadn't been there that morning. Across the front, only 6 handwritten words appeared. Every ending is someone else's beginning. Noah gently picked it up. Somehow, he already knew the final lesson. Grandpa Richard wanted to leave, was still waiting to be discovered. The envelope rested quietly on Grandpa Richard's desk. Across the front, 6 handwritten words. Every ending is someone else's beginning. Noah carefully turned it over. There was no seal, only a folded sheet. Inside, unlike Grandpa Richard's earlier letters, this one was remarkably short. He unfolded it. The familiar handwriting filled only half the page. Dear Noah, if you have reached this letter, then something wonderful has already happened. People are no longer reading my words. They are writing their own. That means the journey has succeeded. Never allow this foundation to become a museum. Museums protect memories. Homes create them. Always choose to build a home with love. Grandpa Richard. Noah lowered the letter slowly. For several moments, no one spoke. The room was filled with complete silence. Lily smiled gently. I think this is his goodbye. Noah shook his head. No, I think it's his invitation. That weekend, the Carter Foundation held its largest gathering since opening. Families filled the old farmhouse. Children ran beneath the great oak tree. Neighbors shared homemade meals. Strangers became friends. Instead of displaying artifacts, Noah removed several glass cases. Grandpa Richard's pocket watch, the old compass, the framed map, the bronze ribbon, the gardener's photograph. Sarah looked surprised. Aren't these our history? Noah smiled. They are, but history should inspire people, not separate them. Behind glass, the pocket watch was placed into a visitor's hands. Children held the compass. Families opened the book of quiet kindness. People laughed. People cried. People talked to one another. For the first time, the stories didn't belong to Grandpa Richard. They belonged to everyone. Outside, Daniel stood beside the wooden mailbox. It had become too small. Letters overflowed onto nearby shelves. A little boy walked up, holding a folded paper. He couldn't have been older than 8. Daniel smiled. Would you like to add your letter? The boy nodded. I wrote it for my dad. Can I read it? Daniel asked. The boy smiled shyly. It's okay. Daniel unfolded the colorful page. Written in large, uneven letters were simple words. Dear Dad, I know you've been sad since Grandma died, but I still need your hugs. Please don't forget to smile, because when you smile, I smile too. I love you. Daniel quietly folded the letter, his eyes filled with tears. Sometimes the greatest wisdom didn't come from adults. Sometimes it came from a child who simply loved without conditions. That evening, the boy's father read the letter. He hugged his son for a very long time. Many people watching nearby quietly wiped away tears. Noah looked toward Grandpa Richard's photograph. He finally understood. Richard had never wanted people to remember him. He wanted people to remember each other. As the celebration ended, Lily walked into Grandpa Richard's study. The old desk sat quietly beside the window. Something caught her eye. Inside, The hidden compartment was one final object. Not a letter, not a map, not a photograph, only a perfectly blank notebook. Across the cover, Grandpa Richard had written the next chapters. Lily carried it to Noah. He gently opened the first page. Only one sentence waited there. This story belongs to you now. Noah smiled because he knew the greatest legacy isn't finishing someone else's story. It's having the courage to begin writing your own. The blank notebook rested quietly in Noah's hands. Across the cover, Grandpa Richard's final words seemed almost alive. The next chapters, the first page, contained only one sentence. This story belongs to you now. Noah slowly closed the notebook. For years, he had searched for Grandpa Richard's answers, his maps, his letters, his hidden messages. Now, there were no more clues, no more destinations, only a blank page, waiting. The following Sunday, the Carter Foundation opened its doors earlier than usual. Families, neighbors, teachers, children, and strangers filled every room. No one knew why Noah had invited them. Near the old oak tree, a simple wooden table had been prepared. On it rested one fountain pen, the blank notebook, and Grandpa Richard's pocket watch. Noah stepped forward, holding the notebook. For a long moment, he simply looked at the people standing before him. Then he smiled. My grandfather spent his life writing letters to people he believed would someday need hope. He left one notebook completely blank. I finally understand why. He opened to the first empty page. Slowly, he began to write. Dear friend, if these words have reached you, perhaps life feels heavier than you expected. Perhaps you're carrying a burden no one else can see. I can't promise that tomorrow will be easy, but I can promise you don't have to walk alone, because someone once believed in me before I believed in myself. Today, I choose to believe in you. When you are ready, help one person. Listen without judging. Stay without rushing. Love without expecting anything in return, because kindness never truly ends. It simply changes. Hence, with hope, Noah Carter. He placed the pen down. Silence filled the garden. Then, without saying a word, Daniel stepped forward. He opened the second page and began writing. After him, Sarah, then Lily, then Ethan, Onebiwan. Every visitor added a letter, not to someone they already knew, but to someone they might never meet. By sunset, the blank notebook was no longer blank. It held dozens of voices, dozens of stories, dozens of promises, passed from one heart to another. Years passed. The Carter Foundation continued to grow. Children who once visited returned as adults. Many brought their own children. Some became teachers. Some became nurses, firefighters, gardeners, volunteers, parents, each carrying a little of Richard's kindness into the world. Near the entrance, a new wooden sign was placed beneath the old oak tree. It simply read, "Leave here a little kinder than you arrived." Visitors often stopped to read it. Many smiled. Some cried. Almost all left behind a story or a letter. One quiet evening, as the sun disappeared behind the hills, Noah entered Grandpa Richard's study. One final time, the pocket watch rested beside the filled notebook. He gently picked it up. For a moment, everything was still. Then, tick, tick, tick. The watch no longer sounded lonely. Its rhythm matched the laughter echoing outside from families gathered beneath the old oak tree. Noah smiled, looking toward Grandpa Richard's photograph. You were right. The greatest legacy was never the letters you wrote. It was the people who kept writing after you. Final message. Every act of kindness begins with one choice. Every story begins with one sentence. Every legacy begins when one person decides to care. Perhaps today, the next letter is yours to write.